Whether we've experienced a physical or emotional injury, most of us seem to have a tendency for shutting down, feeling hard done by, or maybe even victimizing ourselves, sometimes rightfully so. But what we can forget in these moments is that most of the time, it's far more important how we approach each injury as compared to the reality of the injury itself. Here's how we can do a better job of that. What's the first thought we usually have in this kind of situation? Why did this have to happen? Or maybe, if only this didn't happen, are likely contenders. However, this kind of ruminating on what could have been will only serve to injure us further. Sure, there's merit to spending time considering how we might do things differently if confronted with a similar situation in the future. But it stops there. Any further consideration usually turns into unhelpful spiraling. When was the last time we thought, this isn't what I was planning for, but I'll make it work nonetheless? If we instead take the view that each experience we have is simply a contribution towards building our character, then, injury or not, we continue to cultivate ourselves regardless. I just so happened to find myself with a pretty serious injury a little while ago that needed surgery to correct it. What this has meant is that I haven't been able to engage with the physical practice of Kyudo for about 6 months now. And thinking about that number is crazy for me to even consider when I first had the injury, because thinking 6 months later is basically a lifetime when it comes to a daily practice. But thankfully rehab has been going really well, so I'll be able to shoot for the first time since my injury tomorrow. Luckily, the physical aspect isn't the only component of Kyudo. This amount of time away from a physical practice so deeply ingrained into one's routine is nonetheless incredibly disruptive, although it has afforded me certain privileges that I otherwise wouldn't have had access to. I'm grateful that I've been able to continue to attend training with my club throughout this entire period, but instead of training myself, I've been helping to instruct the new beginners that have recently started. I wouldn't have been able to engage with this opportunity if I was focusing solely on developing my own technique and mental posture, etc. The important part here isn't whether this is objectively a more favorable situation to be in or not, but rather that we're making the most of wherever we find ourselves. Could I have predicted that this injury would happen? No, of course not. But what's the alternative? There isn't one. This is the reality. We can't change the fact of something having happened, but what we can change is how we interpret that reality. I'm reminded of the story of the Chinese farmer. Trust me, I'm going somewhere with this. One day, he has one of his horses break loose and run away. The neighbor comes over trying to console him. Oh no, that's a shame. How unfortunate. But what does the farmer say? Maybe not. The next day, he comes to find that the horse has returned, but with 3 new friends. So, naturally, the neighbor comes over again, but this time to congratulate him. Wow, how lucky you are, that's so fortunate. But what does the farmer say again? Maybe not. The following day, the farmer's son is riding one of these new wild horses and gets thrown off, breaking his leg. So, at this point, of course, the neighbor comes over once more to console the farmer. Oh, why must such things happen? That's terrible. Without hesitation, the farmer replies, maybe not. And on the last day, the army comes to the village looking for conscription candidates to take the war. But the son is in no shape to fight, so he isn't drafted. So naturally, once again, the neighbor comes across to congratulate the farmer. Wow, what splendid luck. That's wonderful. But to his neighbor's surprise, he once again says, maybe not. The moral of the story here is that we never know what's around the corner, and if we put too much weight into any single event, we'll likely miss the bigger picture and create a narrative that isn't helpful. But what's a narrative that is helpful though? One that acknowledges how ephemeral and fleeting both happiness and unhappiness tend to be. Like clouds that glide across the sky, we have both sunny and rainy days. The sun recedes in the evening, only to rise in the morning, and the rain only ever lasts so long. When it comes to an injury, we may be impaired for the rest of our lives, or only for a few weeks of taking it easy. Either way, again, we might not be able to change that reality, but we can change our interpretation. And therefore, we have power in the face of what can feel like a powerless situation. A useful question we can ask ourselves in these moments is, if I couldn't know what was going to happen next, how would that change things? This reframe helps to dig our way out of the spiral we may be in and helps us to see other possibilities rather than just the worst possible outcomes. None of this is meant to invalidate or discredit the severity of the situation we find ourselves in, though. If anything, it's intended to be a lifeboat, whether things are just a little inconvenient or the worst they've ever been. Whatever you're going through, regardless of the injury, I believe in you. Let's do our best to grow through whatever we go through, or at the very least, appreciate that no injury should rob us of our hope or humanity. Now, if any of that sounded interesting to you, fun fact is that this video was actually originally written as an article for a Kyudo magazine called Kyudo World. This is the second volume, of which I also contributed to the first volume, which I highly recommend you check out. I'll be sure to put the link for the video I made for that down below as well, along with any of the links to be able to pick up a physical copy of this second volume that I'm very excited to see having been published recently. So please go and check that out. Please go and support it. If you're interested in Kyudo or just cool things in general, then this is the thing for you. This isn't sponsored. I'm just very glad to be able to have contributed to such a cool project and initiative that I'm really glad exists. So do what you will with that information. As always, thanks for watching, thanks for being here, and do more than you think you can.